Interesting stuff, Liam. You referenced there about reductions on tax. Labour, of course, being very critical, as you would expect today, of some of the details in this. They're calling Sunak a high-tax chancellor. They are indeed. That was my take, Michelle, literally a few minutes after Rishi Sunak sat down. Gloria Pierre and I did a 5-hour budget spring statement special broadcast on GBNews this lunchtime and into the afternoon. And since the dust has settled a little bit, since I've been off air, thinking about the spring statement, thinking about what I heard, I guess what's really come to the fore of my mind isn't only the way politics has been reversed, with the Tories raising taxes while saying that they're not, and Labour saying that they don't want those tax rises. What's also sprung to my mind, Michelle, as I've looked through the technical documents, is, during this cost of living crisis, just how little there is in this budget for really hard-pressed families. I said at the end of that video wall presentation there, I slightly fluffed my lines, but I said that benefits are only going to be uprated from April by 3.1%, because that's what happens. You uprate them by the rate of inflation the previous autumn. So now we've got the situation where benefits are going to go up only by 3.1%, but officially the government's saying that inflation will be 7 to 8% this year on average. So that's a real terms cut in benefits at a time when we know that more vulnerable households, lower income households, spend heavily on fuel and food, a bigger chunk of their income. So I think there's going to be an increase in relative and absolute poverty in the UK. A lot more food banks, a lot more people really struggling with their bills, choosing between heating and eating. And I'm afraid to say, I don't say this with any pleasure, I saw very little in this spring statement that suggests that this Chancellor gets that. And Liam, I've got to say, I've had a lot of people already writing in about pensioners and the impact on pensioners that are on fixed incomes, of course. What would your thoughts be on that? I think that's true. There was a lot of this budget seemed to me about sort of political positioning. The Chancellor now is effectively going through with that tax rise in terms of national insurance because he doesn't want to climb down. He doesn't want to admit that the world has changed since last autumn when he announced and we legislated for that tax rise, only to lower taxes, he says he will, before the end of this Parliament by 2024, when, of course, there will be a general election. It struck me there was too much political game playing at a time when not just pensioners, but many parts of our population are really feeling the squeeze. That number that you came up with at the top of your show, that this is the biggest fall in living standards since the 1950s, you didn't plunk that out of the air. I know where you got that from. That is in the Office for Budget Responsibility documents. It was pointed out by the Institute for Fiscal Studies. That is an astonishing number. And given that there are so many issues in terms of the cost of living squeeze, with families feeling the pinch, wondering how they're going to make ends meet, for me, there was far too much political gamesmanship in this spring statement and not nearly enough substance.